In the archives of cultural memory, certain toys refuse to remain innocent. They cross the boundary from object to presence, from collectible to symbol. Labubu is one such figure, its smile recorded, its eyes noted, its presence whispered about by collectors and critics alike. What begins as a toy enters the lineage of the haunted, carrying with it the unease of centuries-old traditions. This is the record you are not meant to forget.
Archival records show that the association between toys and haunting is not a modern invention. For centuries, objects crafted for children, dolls, puppets, and figures, have accumulated reputations that extend beyond play. Their placement within households, their durability across generations, and their human-like features made them ideal receptacles for projection, fear, and superstition. What follows is a survey of documented cases where toys ceased to function as neutral objects and instead entered the realm of the cursed. One of the most enduring examples is Robert the Doll, preserved today in the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. The figure dates back to the early 1900s, when it was given to a boy named Robert Eugene Otto by a servant in his household. Standing over 3 feet tall, dressed in a sailor's suit and clutching a small toy dog, Robert was more than an ordinary doll. Neighbors, family members, and later museum visitors reported instances of movement when no one was near, changes in expression, and even sounds resembling giggles or footsteps. Written testimonies from the Otto household describe a child blamed for mischief, insisting, "Robert did it." Over time, the phrase outlasted its original speaker, spreading through folklore and press coverage. Today, visitors still leave offerings and letters of apology to Robert, believing that disrespecting the doll might result in accidents, illness, or misfortune. A second case, Annabelle, entered public awareness in the 1970s through the investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Unlike Robert, Annabelle was not a unique handcrafted piece, but a commercially produced Raggedy Ann doll. According to reports, it was gifted to a nursing student who soon claimed it exhibited disturbing behavior, changing positions, leaving notes written in childlike handwriting, and even attempting physical harm. When the CICAS Ace reached the Warrens, they declared the doll a vessel of demonic manipulation. Annabelle was placed in a locked glass cabinet within the Warrens Occult Museum, where it remains under constant surveillance. Though skeptics dismissed the claims as exaggeration, the persistence of the legend ensured Annabelle's cultural survival, later amplified by books, television features, and eventually a multi-million-dollar film franchise. What unites Robert and Annabelle is not only the phenomenon of alleged supernatural activity, but the psychological structure underlying their reputations. Toys, especially dolls, occupy a liminal space between the animate and inanimate. They are created to imitate life in simplified form, faces, eyes, mouths, and limbs reduced to essential shapes. When these objects deviate from their expected passivity, whether through actual physical changes or through the perception of the human mind, the unease is profound. Archival commentary in journals of folklore and anthropology often note that toys invite projection more easily than other objects. They are already anthropomorphized, already intended to be spoken to, cared for, or treated as companions. The boundary between child's imagination and adult superstition is therefore thin. Furthermore, toys are persistent objects. Unlike food, clothing, or tools, they are rarely discarded quickly. They survive long after the child has grown, stored in attics, passed between generations, or donated to strangers. In this extended timeline, they become witnesses to the private life of households, and their silent presence accumulates layers of meaning. A worn doll may appear to remember the past in ways that unsettle new owners. The result is an atmosphere where legends of cursed toys flourish. The cultural record also shows that fear attaches itself most readily to objects that resemble us imperfectly. The unblinking glass eye, the stitched mouth, the painted grin. These features echo human traits, but remain fixed, indifferent, and unchanging. This frozen mimicry is what psychologists later identified as a precursor to the uncanny valley, where the nearly human produces more discomfort than the overtly monstrous. Haunted toy reports, then, were not anomalies of belief but natural extensions of a deep-seated cognitive response. By the time Labubu emerged in the 21st century, it entered a landscape already conditioned to view toys with suspicion. Robert and Annabelle are remembered because they demonstrate the durability of this trope. They illustrate how quickly a playful object can cross into terror once narrative, perception, and imagination align. The reports preserved in archives, museums, and popular media reveal that the haunted toy trope has never been confined to superstition. It is a recurring cultural pattern, repeating wherever humans place their trust in small, lifelike figures. In considering why Labubu provokes such polarized responses, one must begin with its physical design. Unlike traditional toys crafted to evoke softness and comfort, Labubu resists categorization. Its most striking feature is the mouth, an exaggerated grin lined with pointed teeth, stretched wider than natural proportion allows. This distorted smile occupies the boundary between welcome and threat. To some, it suggests mischief. To others, malice. The eyes are equally unsettling. Large and circular, they lack the warmth usually embedded in toys designed for companionship. Instead, they stare outward with an intensity that feels fixed, almost confrontational. In dim light, the glare has been described by collectors as alert, as though the toy is actively surveying its environment rather than passively existing within it. Combined with the teeth, the gaze makes Labubu feel less like a figure meant for comfort and more like a figure that notices. The proportions of the body contribute further to this ambiguity. Labubu's limbs are spindly, its ears elongated, and its head oversized in relation to its torso. These features mirror traits often associated with innocence: large eyes, big head, small body, yet they are exaggerated past the threshold of familiarity. The result is a form that mimics the structure of cuteness, but pushes it into territory that feels unfamiliar, almost mutated. This manipulation of proportion is central to why Labubu has been called dreamlike, or even nightmarish, by its owners. The reception of Labubu has been marked by a distinctive tension, fascination paired with unease. Reports from collectors, particularly those circulating through social media platforms, highlight a recurring theme. Many describe the figure as impossible to ignore once displayed. Unlike conventional toys, which recede into the background of a room, Labubu demands attention. Owners have reported the sensation that the toy is watching them, its fixed expression amplifying under certain lighting conditions. In collector forums, one can find repeated accounts of discomfort during photography. Some note that in bright light, Labubu appears playful, its grin bordering on whimsical mischief. Yet when the same figure is photographed in shadow or against a dim background, the grin sharpens, the teeth dominate, and the eyes acquire an almost predatory quality. This duality has been remarked upon so consistently that it has become part of the community's shared language. Labubu is not a static object, but a shifting one, whose expression transforms according to context. Such reactions echo descriptions more commonly associated with allegedly haunted objects. Owners have documented feeling an aura when approaching the figure late at night, particularly in quiet or solitary spaces. While no verifiable physical phenomena, such as movement or sound, have been reliably reported, the emotional weight is notable. Words like alive, aware, or too present recur across independent testimonies. For a collectible intended to be whimsical, such language situates Labubu within a long lineage of objects that provoke superstitious attribution. The persistence of these accounts suggests something beyond novelty. In the broader cultural moment, audiences have grown increasingly comfortable with aestheticized fear. Where earlier generations avoided toys with unnerving qualities, modern collectors often seek them out. The rise of horror-themed merchandise, blind box culture, and limited runs of grotesque or surreal designs demonstrates a shift in consumer appetite.
To own an object that unsettles is, in itself, a form of status, proof of one's tolerance for ambiguity and attraction to contradiction. Labubu thrives within this environment. Its reputation for being unsettling has not diminished its popularity. Rather, it has enhanced it. Online resales frequently highlight the very qualities others describe as disturbing. Marketing language, while restrained, rarely ignores the grin. In many cases, sellers reference its reputation directly, capitalizing on the mythos that surrounds it. What once might have been considered a design flaw has instead become a defining characteristic, turning fear into value. Fan discussions amplify this transformation. On platforms dedicated to art toys and designer collectibles, threads often frame Labubu as more than a figure. It is treated as a personality, a character whose ambiguity invites speculation. Some refer to it affectionately, even while acknowledging its unnerving presence. Others lean into the horror associations, describing it as a gremlin, a trickster, or a watcher. These terms, though playful, reflect a recognition that Labubu resists the standard language of toy collecting. Art exhibitions featuring Labubu have further legitimized this duality. Displayed in curated spaces, the figure often provokes stronger responses than expected. Visitors note how the grin reads differently depending on scale, lighting, and arrangement. Curators, aware of these effects, have positioned Labubu to maximize contrast, a figure at once playful and menacing, childlike and monstrous. This deliberate framing has reinforced the toy's status as a symbol of what might be called cute horror, a genre where innocence and menace coexist. The audience's reaction, then, is not passive but participatory. Fear is not a deterrent, but a draw. Labubu is shared online precisely because of its unsettling qualities, photographed under conditions that emphasize its potential menace. In this way, its reputation perpetuates itself. The more it is discussed as eerie or cursed, the more desirable it becomes to those seeking that very sensation. This feedback loop reflects a larger cultural trend. Modern audiences, saturated by safe and polished design, increasingly gravitate toward artifacts that challenge comfort. The uncanny offers novelty, and in collectible culture, novelty equates to rarity, distinction, and value. Labubu's unsettling qualities have become inseparable from its identity, transforming what might once have been dismissed as a disturbing toy into a coveted artifact of contemporary taste. In summary, the audience reaction to Labubu cannot be separated from its mythos. Collectors do not merely tolerate its unsettling features, they elevate them, weaving stories and rituals around its presence. Whether described as alive, aware, or cursed, Labubu functions less as a passive collectible and more as an active participant in the environments it inhabits. It is precisely this blurred line between object and entity, toy and symbol, that secures its place in the lineage of haunted playthings. Labubu's reputation as a cursed object cannot be understood in isolation. While its design and reception are distinctive, its cultural trajectory follows a longer tradition. Toys that move beyond the realm of playthings to become symbols of unease, objects that acquire mythologies of their own. In this lineage, dolls and figures are never merely passive possessions. They absorb the projections of their owners and, over time, begin to act as vessels for collective anxieties. Robert the Doll in Florida and Annabelle in Connecticut are only the most famous examples. But in each case, the toy is less important as a physical object than as a stage on which cultural fears are performed. The unsettling qualities of these objects, whether glass eyes that seem to follow their owners or bodies that appear too lifelike, invite narratives that grow with every retelling. Labubu participates in this same structure, though with a crucial difference. Unlike Robert or Annabelle, Labubu was not an accidental figure that later accrued myths. It was designed from the outset to embody contradiction, whimsical yet edged with menace. Its grin, teeth, and eyes
did not become cursed qualities through misinterpretation. They were built into its very form, ready to be read as both charming and sinister. In this sense, Labubu represents a shift in the trope itself, a haunted toy designed not by chance, but by intention. For many collectors, the act of owning Labubu is a performance of this very tension. Owners describe their figures as though they were agents rather than objects, capable of influencing the atmosphere of a room. Stories circulate of people moving Labubu to a different shelf, only to feel its presence more strongly. Others joke that Labubu should not be left near the bed at night, its grin too sharp to accompany sleep. Even when said in jest, such remarks reveal the deeper ritual at ease.
Work. Labubu is treated as if it holds power. This performative quality is amplified in digital spaces. Platforms like TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube have become accelerators of folklore, transforming individual unease into collective narrative. Short videos of Labubu under shifting light, its grin changing from mischievous to menacing, circulate with captions that emphasize its alive quality. Reddit threads catalogue eerie experiences of ownership, often framed as warnings or cautionary tales. On YouTube, entire videos analyze why the figure feels cursed, situating it alongside older examples of haunted dolls and objects. Through this process, Labubu becomes more than a toy. It becomes a trope. Each retelling, each video, each discussion reinforces its dual identity. Not simply a designer collectible, but a modern-day haunted figure, whose unease is publicly shared and continually reinterpreted. What once might have remained a private impression, the feeling of being watched, the discomfort of an unnatural grin, is now broadcast to thousands, magnified by algorithms that prioritize what unsettles. This amplification creates a feedback loop. The more Labubu is described as eerie, the more new owners frame their experiences within that narrative. The toy's meaning is no longer confined to its design, but extends to the cultural expectations attached to it. To acquire Labubu is, in some sense, to participate in a script already written, the script of cursed ownership, of living with a figure that refuses to be only cute. At the same time, Labubu has crossed into the domain of art. Exhibitions that feature the figure do not shy away from its unsettling qualities. Instead, they lean into them, framing Labubu as an exploration of cute horror, a genre that deliberately blurs innocence with menace. Critics writing about these exhibitions note that Labubu challenges the boundaries of toy design, functioning instead as a commentary on the thin line between comfort and dread. In this way, Labubu occupies a liminal position, part collectible, part artwork, part modern folklore. The haunted toy trope has always reflected cultural anxieties. In the past, dolls frightened people because they resembled humans too closely, raising fears of possession or replacement. In the digital age, Labubu frightens because it reflects contradiction itself, the simultaneous desire for comfort and thrill, the attraction to what unsettles. Its fame is inseparable from the internet, where folklore no longer requires scent. Yuris to form but can emerge in months, driven by algorithms and global conversation. What distinguishes Labubu, then, is not just its design but its function. It is an object that thrives on ambiguity, inviting stories that shift with the context of its display. It has become a performance of fear, curated by owners, amplified by platforms, and reinterpreted by audiences. To hold a Labubu is to participate in a tradition that stretches back through history, the ritual of giving toys more life than they should contain. In the end, Labubu's place in the haunted toy lineage is secure, not because it has been proven cursed, but because it has been treated as such. Each account, each photograph, each video contributes to the transformation of a plastic figure into a cultural trope. In the 21st century, haunted objects need not move, speak, or harm. They need only to unsettle and to be witnessed doing so. Labubu has achieved precisely that. The chronicles show a pattern. Objects designed for play often become vessels of unease.
Labubu is only the latest to inherit this role, standing as a symbol of the 21st century's fascination with contradiction, innocence fused with menace, charm entangled with dread. If these records have given you a new perspective, preserve them by sharing, discussing, and subscribing to Forgotten Chronicles. For more examinations of the artifacts that shape our fears, return here. The archive is always open.